always assumed I was training hard throughout my journey. I always thought I was training hard, even when I was doing those my like push-ups in my room over 2 years ago. I always thought, yeah, I'm training hard, I'm training hard, I'm training hard. But when I look back, I was very wrong because very often on some sets, yeah, I might have taken some sets to failure, but most of my sets weren't even coming close to failure. But I always thought I was. I always overestimated the intensity I was training with. And that's probably a problem that many people deal with. And that was one of the main thing holding me back from making great progress on my fitness journey, from gaining strength and muscle. Even later on, not only 2 years ago, but even closer to now, like 1 year ago, a few months ago, I thought I was training to failure on every set. I thought I was pushing myself really hard, but I wasn't. Very often I was pretending that I failed the rep, even though if I actually pushed myself, if I actually gave it everything I had, I could have completed another 2 reps or 3 reps. And scientific studies have been showing that you need to train the most important reps are the last 5 reps, and you need to train at least to most with 3 reps in reserve. At most, 3 reps in reserve if you want to make significant gains. So that was a real struggle for me. But when I actually learned what training to failure was, how it should be done, that's when I finally started making progress again. I started growing, I started gaining strength and muscle again after months. Because yeah, I still built kind of a little bit of muscle when I was training half-heartedly, like not really pushing myself because of newbie gains. But at some point, you can only get so far with a suboptimal training routine. So I plateaued for months, and it's only when I actually understood this concept and I really started to train hard to really push myself. That's when the gains came. And the first thing that I did that kind of taught me how to train failure, that gave me that base at least, is I started doing something. I started doing only one set per exercise for just a while, not for forever. Right now I'm doing 2 sets per exercise, so I'm still doing pretty low volume, but it's not one set per exercise. But there was a phase because I'd watched a video from Hamza where he was talking about this, about training intensity, training to failure, and then he said that he's currently doing 1 set per exercise to really teach himself how to train to failure. And it was around 1 year, 1.5 years ago. So I watched that video and I said, okay, I'm gonna implement this. I'm gonna try this. And I tried. And because I only had 1 set per exercise, I really didn't want to mess it up. Because before that, I was doing like 4 or 5 sets or 3 sets per exercise. But because I only had 1 set per exercise, I really didn't want to mess it up. So my intensity went up. I wasn't necessarily really training to failure on every set at that period of time. When I look back now, I can realize, yeah, I probably wasn't going to total failure on every set. But it greatly improved my pain tolerance and my ability to actually push myself on those sets. Just doing 1 set per exercise. Because when you have 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets per exercise and you do extremely high volume, it's pretty much close to impossible to actually improve your skill of intensity, get better at the skill of pushing yourself, get better at improve your pain tolerance and all those things. Because when you do 5 sets per exercise, when you do such high volume, unless maybe on the last set, but on all these other sets, you're not actually gonna go through failure. And if you're really doing 5 sets per exercise, and yeah, and the first few sets are probably might be junk sets or something like that. Might be just junk. You might not even come close to failure at all in the first few sets. So that's the first thing I did, 1 set per exercise. And then second thing I did is mastering technique first. Really mastering technique first and really teaching myself how to keep to maintain amazing form even whilst pushing myself. Because very often, something that I did when I started really pushing myself and really training hard to failure is I would compensate and I would try to make it easier for me when it became hard by using bad form. So on the last few reps, my form would look very different than it would on the first few reps. And it's then hard to really know if I actually went to failure, if my muscle actually failed, because my the reps on the last few reps looked very different to the first few reps. On the last few reps, I'm really using a lot of like body English, momentum, and everything to complete my set, and that's not true failure. If you are compensating with momentum, body English, and all those things, so I really told myself to maintain good technique even when it became painful, hard. And now it's become very good, even when it becomes very painful. My last few reps look pretty much identical on every exercise to my first few reps. And that's a skill that really, really, really is powerful because those last few reps are the most important ones. So when I was using body English on those ones and trying to compensate with momentum, I'm actually stealing the gains from myself, stealing, removing the gains, most of the gains from the last few reps, which are the most important part of the set. So a good way to learn to master the technique first is just to first start with higher reps. I used to do higher reps before. Now I'm doing very low reps in general, but I used to do higher reps first. Because if you do very low reps, like 5 to 7, like I'm doing now, 5 to 7 rep range, from the first rep is already gonna the first rep is already gonna be difficult. The first rep is already gonna be pretty slow. So if you haven't taught yourself with higher reps first, how to really push and really use good technique with higher reps, then it's going to be very difficult to actually maintain and use good technique with lower reps because when you're doing 5 reps instead of 7, the first rep is already going to be hard. The first rep is already going to be not going to be super fast. At least on most exercises, on a lot of exercises, on hard, heavy compounds and everything. So if I had started to use with the rep range I'm using now, if I started with it when I first started lifting, it wouldn't have been a very good idea because my form, it would have been very hard for me to use good form regardless of yeah, it would have been just difficult for me to use good form in general. Another thing now is after I mastered the technique, after my technique became very, very good, and just mastering the technique is basically just control the eccentric. You can go fast on the concentric if you want. You don't have to go super fast, but you don't need to go slow on the concentric. But the eccentric is basically the lowering phase of the movements. So on the pull-ups, it's the way down. On squats, the way down. Just always the kind of putting the weight, like it's the eccentric phase is basically the phase where the muscle is getting lengthened. So on bicep curls, like just this part of a movement where you're lengthening the bicep. On push-ups, it's the way down when the pecs are getting stretched. That's basically the eccentric, and you need to control that. You don't need to have a. I don't really recommend. I don't think it's a good idea to have like counting seconds in your head and be like, okay, I'm gonna do a 3 second eccentric or something like that. No, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it will probably take you away from your set, and you will lose a lot of focus from doing that. So I think it's probably would be a lot better to basically just think about controlling it, really controlling the weight on the way down. Really make sure you don't just drop the weight on the eccentric, because first it will probably greatly increase the chances of injury, and you're losing a lot of gains you could get from the most beneficial part of the movement, which is the eccentric. So basically, just control the weight on the eccentric, and you pause at the end of the eccentric before going back up. That's basically how you can get great technique. There isn't like a perfect tempo to lower the weight or anything, no. Just control it very well. Just control it as well as you can. Some exercises will require more control than others. But just think to yourself, okay, from now the eccentric I'm going to control it, and in when I'm in full stretch, the muscles in a full stretch position, I can pause. That's something I do and it works very, very well for me. And I learned this from RP, so Renaissance Periodization, an amazing channel, which taught me a lot of those things. And also from Matthew Seda, another amazing YouTuber. Something I'm doing now that helps me to go to failure on every set is just doing lower reps. I'm just doing lower reps. My rep range on pretty much 99% of the exercise I do, it's 5 to 7. And that's pretty low, but that's still between 5 and 30. Like, to build muscle, you basically need to do probably, like, I think the science shows, I'm not going to talk as if I'm a professional or anything, but I think science shows that it's important that if you do between 5 and 30 reps per set, you're going to build pretty much similar amount of muscle. There's not a perfect rep range between that, but it needs to at least be between 5 and 30. So at first, like I said before, I first started with doing higher reps on most sets, 10, 15. But now I've recently started to lower it. I first went to 6 to 8 rep range. Now I went down to 5 to 7 to really prioritize intensity on every set. And because I'm now able to actually do that. Because the longer the set, the harder it becomes to really push yourself to failure. If you do a set of 30, it doesn't matter what exercise it is. At least for me, it's very difficult to actually go to failure on a set of 30. It's not easy at all. Of course, even going to failure on a set of 5, it's also very difficult in its own way, because from the first rep, it's already fucking difficult, and you think to yourself, am I really gonna get another 4 reps here? But the problem with doing 30 reps that I don't personally like, it's just that 30 reps, I'm someone, I control the eccentric on every rep. My sets are gonna take a while if I decide to do such high reps. Because of controlling the eccentric, if I just went fast as possible, yeah, 30 reps wouldn't be too hard. But when I mean control the eccentric as well, doing a set of 30 is gonna take a while. So I just prefer to do lower reps. That's honestly a little bit easier to go to failure with lower reps than you go to failure with higher reps. Some people prefer higher reps. You can do that, of course. Do what you want. I prefer lower reps, and it helps me to actually push myself more. I think between 5 and 12 works very well for me. Going higher on some exercises, yeah, but the lower rep range, I think 5 to 7 is working very, very well for me right now. Lower rep range. Last thing that helps me with training to failure is just safety. Knowing that failing the rep won't put me in danger. So for example, just having pins on squat. So I do zombie squat and I have pins ready for me. So if I know, okay, I'm going to fail this set. I know beforehand, okay, I'm going to go to fail on the set. If I doing an exercise or I'm training, I'm somewhere where failing wouldn't be safe for me, then of course I'm not going to go to failure. And I'm not going to risk failing with a rep. If I'm thinking to myself, okay, I might get that last rep, but I might also fail, and failing seems scary in that situation, then of course I'm not going to go to failure. So that's why having pins on certain exercises, like on zombie squat, I have pins. So when I fail, I basically just have to drop my shoulder forward so that the weight drop on the pin. But if I don't have that, then I could basically, dropping the weight's going to be a lot harder. Like I have to dump the weight on the ground and probably bounce, and it may just roll back towards me. It's not such a good thing. So just feeling safe, knowing that failing won't put you in danger, works very well for me. I think I learned this from Alex Leonidas. He was talking about this in many of his videos about safety. It's very important to actually be able to push yourself to failure. So that's all I have to say here. hope you got some value here. Those are the things that really helped me to actually learn how to train to failure. Because this was a long journey. When I first discovered that training to failure was important, I thought I was training to failure, but I wasn't. 2 months later, I thought I was training to failure then, but I wasn't. 5 months later, I thought I was training to failure then, but I wasn't. So this can be a long journey. But at least if you implement those tips and stay humble. Last thing I would say is just staying humble and realizing, okay, very often I thought it was obviously, I thought it was so clear. I thought it was so obvious and I was really training to failure, even though I wasn't. And it's only when I had the humility to realize, yeah, I'm probably not. I'm probably not really pushing myself to failure. Another thing that helped me is just watching some people really train to failure and really see how much their reps slow down. If your reps don't considerably slow down on the last few reps, if your last rep doesn't look that slow, then you probably had more in the tank. I used to think that I was just special, and that's why I can go to failure, but my reps don't really slow down. But no, it wasn't that. It was just that I wasn't going to failure. If you see my last rep on the bicep curl, it's fucking slow. It goes up like super, super, super slow now. But in the past, it wasn't like that. The last rep would be like, yeah, I did it. But now it looks very, very slow. So you should just look at your concentric. Your concentric should involuntarily slow down on the last few reps. You shouldn't slow down because you're intentionally trying to make it slow. It should slow down because you can't move it any faster. So just looking at watching some people really train to failure, going on YouTube and looking for videos. They can look at RP, like Renaissance Periodizations. Their videos, they do some workouts with other famous YouTubers, and on those workouts they always push those guys very, very hard. So they can watch those videos and actually see what it actually looks like to see someone actually train to failure and pushing themselves. Because the last few reps of a set to failure on a lot of exercises are very slow. Like I remember last Friday, I did weighted dips with a deep range of motion, like deep stretch, pause at the bottom. And I did 7 reps with 15 extra kgs, like 16 totals. And the last rep took me such a long time to complete. The last rep it was so difficult. It slowed down so much. I assume it took like 7 seconds to complete the last rep. That's just how slow it was because of how much my concentric unintentionally slowed down because my muscle were already fatigued from the first few reps. So yeah, that's all I had to say. If you're interested in fitness coaching, then you can click the first thing in the description. Don't run from discomfort, chase it.